5:30. I got to send 4:30. I got to send charger Uber.
Good evening, Hampton University. Welcome to our final I Am the Legacy Project series this evening. It is an evening conversation that we will be having with our guests who are Hampton alum. But before we do that, I must say that I am Calvin Harris, Assistant Director of Student Activities here at Hampton University. And I'm joined today by...
How you guys doing? I am Jordan Thomas Ray, graduating senior liberal studies major from York, Pennsylvania, and I am serving as your 19th Mr. Pirate.
All right. We have the pleasure today of being joined by a couple who I recently met that has been a blessing. Our conversations here recently have come and been short, but have been very impactful in the moments that we have blessed each other with. We have Mr. Karega Bailey and his wife, Dr. Felica Gandloff-Bailey. I'm sorry, did I pronounce your last name right?
Oh, you're doing everything right now.
At this time, if you all could just please honor us with telling us a little bit about who you are and your bio.
Firstly, I'm grateful. We are grateful to be here.
Yeah.
For me, it's just a real live treat right now to see Jordan Ray in that space, serving as the 19th Mr. Pirate. But we had some conversation before this space began, right? And I learned about his work in the Newport News Juvenile Detention Center. That's a place that's just near and dear to my heart. That's what was my induction to the work that I have done nationally and globally. It started right there in Newport News with a sociological lens, right? So just to see you here right now is a real big treat to just watch the continuum of the work. But after being grateful, he said again, I'm Karega Bailey. This is my lovely wife.
I'm Felica Gandloff-Bailey. I'm happy to be here, excited to be here for our alma mater. I graduated 2009, a music education major. And Karega.
I graduated 2008, sociology major.
Yeah. And man, I don't know what to share with you, Calvin. Like,
all right.
What they want to know, or I mean, we met. Okay, I'm sorry.
But let's say this. Let's take a step back.
Okay.
All right. So on this week on our campus, the climate, well, obviously the students are not here. We're all quarantined or away from the campus. So this particular project, the I Am a Legacy Project, we've been reaching out to the students and administration to let them be reassured that they are part of the Hampton legacy. Even though they are away from their home by the sea, that the spirit is still live and thriving, and we miss them sorely. So with that being said, the reason why I wanted to invite you all to this particular segment is because of your work ethic. And talking about life affirmations and dealing with the soul and really becoming one with yourself, I think I wanted to start off instantly with just tell us about when you realized you fell in love with Hampton University.
I like that. I like how you pulled up on that question. I like how you pulled up. So when I fell in love with Hampton University, great question. Now I was blessed to be part of a Black college tour that was coming out of Sacramento at the time. And I got to go to Hampton early on a college tour. And I met brothers there who I would come to know to this very point in life. I didn't know then that some of them were from California. But I met Yancey's from New York. I met, Felica. Like, these were brothers who end up really holding me present and accountable. But I fell in love with Hampton. Wow. That's because here's the thing, like, the unique thing is I've been able to re-fall in love with Hampton in new ways since graduating, since being in the world, since realizing what I was given. Now it was always special to me, to us. Like, just name this. We both from South Sac. We're from Sacramento, California, right?
Yeah, that's important. Context.
The context.
We met in Sacramento. in high school, not the same high school, but in the same network of pretty much like the youth Sacramento art scene.
So we were both artists in Sacramento in the youth scene, but there was also this culture and this trajectory that was connecting us to HBCUs. You got to remember, we're all the way in California. And when you name South Sacramento, you have to name a place that only has one university in a very large city and a few community colleges, very unlike the dense population of advanced learning institutions that is up and down the Mid-Atlantic, right? We have so many institutions of higher learning on the East Coast and Mid-Atlantic, but in Sacramento, that wasn't the same for us. And coming from the neighborhood where we came from, so we came from South Meadowview, right? Namely, right? So Meadowview is also context to what the world has learned about Stephon Clark. That's our neighborhood. Oh. So coming from that space to Hampton, I fell in love with Hampton when I got there and had the opportunity to learn. I had the opportunity to grow. I had the opportunity to learn under Black psyche and professorship and academics who were also cultivating the rigor of my character. So I fell in love early with this place that was accepting and challenging and engaging and pushing and naming my Blackness as an added value, right? Not a deficit trait, but that to be Black, to have access to a place like Hampton University, that is added value. So I fell in love early. Hence why I became Mr. Pirate, why I was active on campus. I appreciated the institution while I was there. But I also fell in love with it differently in spaces after. I'm going to defer to Felicia, but I just want to kind of show that timeline of how to fall in love with a place like Hampton.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll only add that my experiences brought me to Hampton through my relationship with my music instructor in Sacramento. So I had the opportunity to be classically trained by a well-renowned pianist named Precious Craft. And prior to my going, she had sent a couple of students to Hampton for their music program. And so it was one of those things where her student that was like at the level right above me had just went. And I knew like, okay, well, then this is what I'm going to do. I always knew I wanted to go to HBCU. I had already had that kind of bred in me, although I didn't have the opportunity to participate in a college tour like Karega. So I came to Hampton and unknowing the campus. Like I showed up when it was time to show up. I had never visited it, but I knew I was coming here for the music program. And it was one of the best decisions of my life. Like Hampton has such a rich musical culture. And we had the opportunity to study with rigor, like the excellence of Black music. It's one of the most amazing experiences. And I always say this to people, and sometimes I say it with a lot of pride, and I could be quite cocky, but if you didn't go to a HBCU, then I feel sorry for you. I've always said that. It's especially when you are having a higher ed experience inside of a Black body. It's something so powerful about being connected holistically to what you are learning. So being in Hampton, I fell in love with the music program. I knew that I was coming for that. But just as Karega said, like you learn different things after when you leave. Now, one thing that I've learned since, graduating from Hampton and furthering into grad school is that Hampton is just different. When you come home, like you can always come back to Hampton. And that's when I knew like, oh, I love it here. There's always a home for me. There's a home for us right now. You brought us back to this space.
Think about it. Think about it like exactly like to be connected in the type of way, despite all the distance, despite all the obstacles that don't let us hold space the way we used to, we're still connected.
Yeah.
And connectedness is highly important to human development.
So important.
Right? It's not even about like place or status or networking. I think that we misunderstand the value of networking because network is really about connectedness, right? So networking is kind of like the identity or the philosophy that engages in the give and take. Yeah. But it's so much more than a give and take. You are becoming when you're connected. And to be connected is so powerful. That's why I really feel so blessed to be sitting across from Jordan right now, because it's a connection. It's a direct connection.
And it's so important. And Karega and I have these conversations all the time, just working in education, but it is pivotal to have connectedness as it necessitates your self-efficacy. Like, you need that. It informs what you believe you can do. It informs your will. It informs your expectation. It informs your values and all of the decisions that you make after that. And so having a place like Hampton, where it literally is like, it breeds this connectedness.
Yeah.
Think about what it does for the Black psyche when they leave. You know, it's.
You said you want them to know they're part of a legacy, right? So, like, word to me, I wouldn't sell it if it wasn't true. But there is a legacy connected to your experience and the value that it holds in a world that doesn't celebrate or look like or feel like the very rich Blackness that we got to experience. So even if it's just for a second, you run into somebody from HBCU, namely Hampton, you just know that moment, like, the gifting has multiplied. And it helps you remember how special you are in a world that can sometimes tell you differently. Not sometimes, that often tells you differently. It helps you remember your special place in this world. So I fell in love with Hampton. I was a sociologist, one of 8 children. My parents are immigrants from Jamaica. So for me to have the opportunity to attend Hampton and to understand the sociological constructs that gave me the privilege to go to Hampton, because it wasn't about I get to go and I'm here. I had to understand the privilege that I had to even be there as one of 8 children, as coming across the country, and all the people who helped inform and pay for my college education. You dig what I'm saying? So I had the opportunity to really remember that, like, I'm privileged to be here. And I'm not special because I am here. Having that lens has enabled my service, my gratitude, the way I show up in the world, because I always knew that I was privileged to be at Hampton. It wasn't just a given. And to whom much is given, much is required. So I've made a life of service out of having the rich experience at Hampton.
Sure. That leads me into my next question, actually. Like, what is the biggest life tool you have gained from attending Hampton or HBCU that you've used in your life?
The biggest tool? Ooh.
I can tell you one for real. Yeah, and I can just tell she felt it. It came in her spirit. Here's how it goes. I learned patience and how to communicate with people who are across the table from me. Right? I learned patience, diligence. I learned the importance of connecting to the person, not the title, not the procedure, not the system. To be my situation at Hampton, I required so much financial aid. I was in every single financial aid line there was. Okay. And I'm talking about up until my senior year, I'm thinking to myself, like, this is getting old. How am I still here and I'm still having to take these steps? But those steps prepared me to be very attentive to steps and procedures and processes and paperwork and systems and how to participate in the system. Yeah. But it also gave me, like, endurance. It gave me a great deal of endurance. It gave me a great deal of, now what I've learned is my ability to take deep breaths. Take a deep breath and reset. And it also taught me the power of relationship building, right? Because anybody on the other end of the table than you is a person first, not title. They don't owe you something fast. They are managing life outside of the workspace. They are managing children and all the other variables that it takes to be an adult. So I learned how to connect to people. And that has mattered a great deal of how I chose to navigate the world.
I would have to agree with Karega. And I think we joke about this. If you've ever, just had an experience where you are trying to get something signed or something done, that Hampton runaround. But it teaches you so much. I think that it's character development, truly. When you learn how to communicate with other people, when you learn how to see other people and build relationships with other people. I think Hampton teaches you how to build relationships with other people. And I also value the standard of excellence. There is a standard of excellence that Hampton has adopted and has maintained. And I remember first coming into Hampton and not 100% agreeing with some of what I was learning as far as, like, how to present or conduct myself, right? And And then I left realizing, oh no, this is the standard by which I will move forward and conduct myself, and you will be able to identify that when you see me. Hampton is special in that way. Very special.
Very special.
Yeah.
That standard of excellence that you're talking about, big ups to a wonderful scholar named Dr. Lois Benjamin.
Ooh.
And Dr. Zena McGee. At the time, for me, this is what happened. That standard of excellence, it made me believe in my writing even more, because the standard was, if my paper was real good, I was going to be in class early. If my paper was just coming together, I'll be dragging through the door. If my paper was not tight, I'll be coming in late. And I wanted a certain respect on my writing. So sometimes I would show you that I was nowhere near late. I'm here early. My paper is in my hand because I want you to engage with the best that I had to offer. And I want to show you that I cleared my expectation even by getting here early, because this is not where I was performing in my sophomore year, in my junior year. Right? What the scholar I became in my senior year, that was the first year I never worried about grades. I love what I was learning, and I love learning, that I rarely even checked my grades. Right? That was the semester that I got like a 4.2. I was not even worried about my grades. I was so deeply engaged in the learning. Right? But to do that in a safe, insulated Black space, I haven't found that replicability anywhere else in the world.
And I'll add to that the expectations, well, the standard that she established and the expectations that she had of you, it also breeds a thoroughness. She had a thoroughness that she also transferred. And I think Hampton has a thoroughness. I experienced the exact same thing in my own music program with my music teachers. There was no mediocrity with anything that we did. There was a thoroughness to getting it done, and there was an excellence to be achieved at the end of it. And I think that Hampton, the practice of that being at Hampton is definitely a tool that I've taken on since leaving.
And I think I totally agree with everything that you all have said. One thing at Hampton, we are learning as we cultivate and manifest through the years and hard times and with the joys and pains of being on campus. We embrace the moment. And I think that a lot of times, like you said, patience, understanding who you are dealing with, whether you're administration, a student, a grounds worker, security. We have to understand that everybody is human and has a job. Everybody is there in that moment for a reason. And one thing that we often, in this world of social media, I would like to know, what do you all tell the college student who thinks that they are an influencer via social media, but are not really tapped into what they are influencing people to do? Obviously, like a lot of times on campus, social media can make or break you. You know, we have had conversations about that. And I think right now in our times, we really have so much talent on the yard. Like you all are musicians and writers and stuff. And we've had some great talents over the last 3 years that have gone on to do great things. But in this world of social media, what is your advice to the Hampton student when they want to reach and influence via social media? Because I've checked y'all pages. Your pages are lit, okay? Anybody, and we're going to post them up during later on, and they'll be able to plug their pages. But I think that your social media pages, the way you are advertised, and we'll get into your businesses, I think you all have really tapped in to that niche that you all have a following for. And I wish to share that same inspiration with our students.
When you, Robert Harris, when you position it as such, thank you for that entry point into the conversation and the dialogue. Because now when you get into what our practice is or what my practice is, I would just deeply offer with a warm embrace to firstly stand in who you are, right? It's critically important to do self-work. It's critically important to know who you are. It's critically important to know when you have when you deserve the space to be silent, when you deserve the space to not influence or not participate, you deserve that space. And then I would, say after you've done that work with yourself and understand your right to not participate, that you participate accordingly to a value that represents what gives you peace, what gives you presence, not attention and not acceptance, right? But what truly makes you feel grounded in who you are. The challenge is, if you have not felt grounded in who you are before the social media, it can be increasingly more difficult to feel grounded to who you are without it. So the work on self is always paramount. It always comes first. And then you show that experience, that process, or however you build your community or your niche, right? And I'll also tell you, I'm sure there are genius and adaptive ways of managing and engaging social media on Hampton's campus right now that we are not privy to, because I remember the league of thought and innovation that campus created, right? Some of the most brilliant minds are there right now learning to manipulate how to experience social media. My ask and my reminder to all of us is that we are always putting something in there that renders goodness, that renders the best of us, because we deserve it. Like we deserve. And when I say the best, I don't mean picking best moments. No, I mean like best as in like virtue. I can't judge your presence, but best as in like, would you?
Yeah, it's kind of hard.
Yeah, not like would you like for real? Like you got to just understand that your thoughts and your words and those are all real.
Yeah,
those are all very real. So even though you're playing in an augmented reality, an augmented space, your thoughts and what you're saying is very real. And does it give you peace? Do you want to come back to that? Or is it something you have to rectify?
Are you practicing love?
Are you practicing love?
That would be my question is, are you, by how you're using your voice, by how you're using your influence as you define, are you practicing love? What does that look like? What does the practice of love look like? How does it look for yourself? How does it look for other people? And I think if you are able to answer that first for yourself, then for other people, then I think it changes the lens by which one influences.
I believe like we're kind of in the time now where like we're looking at everything on social media, but you tapped in on something like, are you focusing on yourself? You know what I mean? Like with the given platform, you have to show like leaders follow, as you can relate kind of us both being Mr. Pirates kind of with this platform. I say embrace the moment, like you guys said before, because when you embrace that moment, you get to feel that experience. I like to say like this is like the one time in 4 years of your life that we are going to be the majority of people. Like when I say we, I'm talking about us as African Americans. It's just like you need to embrace that, and that's why I said once you do that and just be really in the moment, I feel everything will follow. Especially on the social media sphere where people are looking at you, following you all the time, and it's just like, what are you doing in that light? Are you doing it responsibly? Are you making someone want to be different, making someone want to go out and be a change? So definitely how you can utilize that as given the social media sphere.
Sure. Straight up, Jordan. Straight up.
With that, so let's get into the real of developing the soul. All right. You all have your own personal businesses, and that's why we reached out to you all today. But if you could just take us back, and I must be remiss to apologize that we did not let the public know, other than on the flyers when we started this podcast, that you all have a great accomplishment. You all just released a documentary. You have multiple albums, a self-help book that we'll get into. But on this upcoming Saturday, you'll be featured on the OWN network underneath the Black Love series. My favorite show. I watch it. I'm hoping it's romantic. But and I love to hear people's stories, because one thing about it, I think that everybody in my life now, and I'm much older than you all, I believe in authentic relationships. I believe in the love story of not only my spouse, but my friendships. There are a lot of people that are in my life that I can name 3 people that when I first met, I might not have cared for, or we might have bumped heads. But now these are 3 people that, you know, are in my morning prayers when I wake up, are people that have helped me get through some things in life. So now I would like to know what manifested in your life to get you to the soul development and the love that you all have for each other.
Hmm. So I want to start, and I want you to finish it.
Perfect.
So Karega and I, as I mentioned, we met in high school. Went on to Hampton. Karega, Mr. Pirate, 0708, and when Karega finished, he actually finished and went straight into Teach for America in the DC cohort. His experiences in the DC cohort, he actually started at a school called SHAD, which was a school for students who had social, emotional, I guess as they would label the exceptionalities. And I can recall being his partner, being his girlfriend at the time. I could recall his experiences through his art. It showed up through his poetry. And I mentioned the Mr. Pirate part because, in fact, we had collaborated
Yes, we
for the
did.
talent portion
Yes,
of
we
the
did.
Mr. Pirate pageant. And
She played piano.
I played keys for him while he actually spit a poem at the time on the Gina 6. And so going back into DC, I ended up going to Howard for the educational psychology doctoral program. But we collaborated again in music through poetry. And the music was actually about his students' experiences. And one of the first songs that we wrote together is a song called Roses. Um, and it's about a young girl who's only 9. And
Look at Chrissy, man. She only
yeah,
9. When she
and
brought up in the hood, like
yeah,
shot.
and it's about her being this rose in concrete, but her resiliency, that she's able to find hope in the midst of hopelessness. And next to that was another song called Source of Light. Source of Light is one of my most favorite songs, which is the soul that you're speaking of. And I'm gonna let you take it from there. That's how we get here.
Source of Light in its original writing was about me. My earliest work at trying to identify what is that light within me, what is that light within my young people, that I could call to their present remembrance when life in front of you tells you otherwise. You have to remember that there is a sacred light inside of you, always, by virtue of you being here. No one is insignificant. But what happens is systems have it so that people who are experiencing poverty feel so insignificant. You have so many different experiences that invalidate your being valuable. That's one of the hardships of poverty. So I needed to write remembrance coding, if you will, right? In the early forms of music that could remind us that we are valuable, that there is a light inside of us, and here are the processes to recall that light. And that work never stopped. And that early writing that served as like my own therapeutic practices before I even found therapy became frameworking for greater writing. So there would later be a first book written about it. There would later be Surrender. There would later be another documentary. Like all this work was just built upon trying to call forth this light, developing the soul. So this music then brings about soul development.
Well, I'll argue that.
Okay.
So he's telling you the experiences that he's had with his students, right? And I'll even try to, like, I guess, paint the aesthetic for you. But a lot of his students, they're coming from Southeast DC, um, actually different hoods of DC, and this is their meeting ground, right, at this school, which was a public charter school. Karega had one particular student who he was a freshman at the time, and I imagine from what I've heard, right, I wasn't there, but that he was disengaged in his classroom, a bit disruptive. So they would send him to Karega's office, who at the time was the dean of culture, and Karega trying to, kind of figure out what's going on. It wasn't until that student realized that Karega did music that he was willing to open up. And what we learn is that this student was actually sharing space in classroom with another student who was the sibling to the man that killed his brother. So you're having this expectation of this child to learn, right, to be engaged, but just right across. Here's someone who is related to someone closely who's harmed me and my family. How do you focus, right? How are you present? So I name that for you because not long after that, Karega's still working in this at Maya Angelou Public Charter. He gets a call on June 13th, 2014. And by his body language, that same student that I was just telling you about could pick up that something was wrong with him. And he got every student out of his office and he just hugged him. Karega had got a call that his older brother, Kareem, had just been murdered. His older brother, who's a teacher. So I preface that for you because prior to Karega having to experience this, he's making this music for his students, and his students used to say, "Yo, Bailey, you get it, but you there's like some things we don't want you to get." And I feel like this experience with the loss of his brother gave him a different framing, a different understanding of his students' lens, right? And now it became this thing, well, how does he navigate hope in the midst of hopelessness, fighting revenge, right? How do you find yourself to be able to continue to mentor these students? Everything that you said before, do you still believe it? He's faced with everything that he's just observed. I mean, sorry.
No. I think you're doing a fine job. Wow. So if one were to ask me, when did I fall in love with Hampton again? So it also includes the sociological lens that I was equipped with to view the world around me this way. I wasn't blaming anybody for their experiences. I wasn't blaming the students who were coming to school armed. I wasn't blaming anybody for what they were participating in, because if you understood the circumstances, what would a normal human response be?
Right.
So I kind of used an investigative lens as a sociologist, but it led me to love, right? Of all the variables that I could not solve for, it led me to love. And we believe that light is the vehicle by which love transfers, right? So we embody this light, we make room for it. But it literally was the only way to survive some of the things that I've experienced, because there was nothing else to hold on to. Everything else was too heavy to hold. Like, there are certain losses that you can experience where there is no residue of anger or revenge or get back. There is no getting back. Back isn't an option. So you only have forward to go in love. And that became some of the pivot in my pedagogy as an educator, as a practitioner, as a writer. It really started to surface. Those themes started to become present. Hence is why we had Soul Spoken, which was the poetry endeavor. Hence is why we had Soul Development, which is the music and community healing endeavor. You mentioned the documentary, When the Waters Get Deep, Dear Beloved, right? So people see these experiences and that soul is still happening, that source of light is still happening, right? Then we come up to
it's the framework by which we are now here with soul affirmations. Those writings, so soul affirmations, if you pass the book ready, is and it says a collection of manifestations that Karega actually has written and applied through his experiences with his students and the experiences with the loss of his brother. And they're actually journal entries from these experiences. And I'll read one for you if you don't mind.
Please, go ahead.
Life is not just something happening around me. Life is something happening inside of me. And today I will take time to explore what that means.
One more time.
Life is not just something happening around me. Life is something happening inside of me. And today I will take time to explore what that means.
When I hear that affirmation, I think about all of those external values that tell us, that can tell Black people, that can tell Black poor people experiencing poverty, all those experiences that we can have that tell us we're not significant can make life outside of you feel very bland, cold affect, if you will. But when you remember that life is happening inside of you, that no matter what is happening around you, no matter what they're saying about you, no matter what they're saying about your people, no matter what they're saying about your neighborhood, life is a gift that's happening inside of you. And when you take time to explore what that means, it's so difficult to relinquish the gift, the power that you have, because you recognize there is something deep happening inside of me called life. And you honor it even so far as you can the best way. Right. But that particular affirmation is about honoring that something is happening inside despite the bleak experiences outside.
Yeah, and I think that's so powerful, and to touch on because we are both, experiencing life. You know what I'm saying? He's branching out into his new venture in this time. But even for myself, it's so crazy that you say that, because I think in my personal world, life happened to me last year that kind of made me grow up. I lost my father in August of last year. And at that moment, I always thought I was grown. But in that moment, my world stopped and I had to really grow.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I had lost something. And in my world now, I realize that that growth happened inside of me. So recently, I started where I've always been supporting other people. I started branching out, thinking about myself. What is growing inside of me? And I have my own business ventures that I'm kind of toying with that is really excelling very fast, but it's finding that passion inside. And I know we talked about love of Hampton, and I'm going to take a step back because I think that we're amongst somebody who has life happening around him and within him. Are you able to relate to what life is now within yourself?
Definitely. So I've kind of been it's kind of funny that we're really having this question, and that's the affirmation that you picked. Because I've been trying to, I don't want to say like readjust, but kind of just find new ways to enjoy life myself, rather than what I'm usually doing. Like, it's cool to always kick it. It's cool to always be around, hang around. But now I'm kind of in a stage, maybe it's because it's my senior year. It's like, all right, so how am I really going to start to make this difference that I'm talking about? Like, what are the steps I need to take to do? So what I've been trying to do is kind of like keep myself on a routine, start a new routine. I work too, so schedule's been, especially with the shifting of the new position, schedule's been crazy. I feel like I've had no time on my hands, but I have, I've learned to not look at it like that and look at it more as like me finally being able to, not finally, but me being able to enjoy these different experiences and making the most out of the experiences and not just being there. Like, that's one thing I was really doing was I would just be places and just show face, and like when we're hanging out, like when things like that were to happen, I never was really kind of in tune with myself, like in tune with like, why am I really here? Like, why am I really doing this? So definitely steps I've been taking is to just doing things with meaning, making a presence and making my presence felt, you know what I mean?
So I think one of the big things is we have to always remember in life, you have to live. So those decisions of sometimes you just be. Yeah. It's called an in the meantime moment. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? They don't really happen too often, but that's more of a positive way of looking at it. Because oftentimes you might hear an older person say, that was when I was in the down valley low of my life. That's kind of negative. But if you just say I was in the meantime, right. In that meantime, when you are looking to grow, everybody has a stagnant moment in life. And you have to reevaluate yourself. I know at the age of 41, I have reevaluated my friendships 50 million times. And that is where the growth, because life around you, as he says, happens. And I love that affirmation. I cannot wait to get a copy of this book, because right now, you know, my daily word is, I don't really think it's an affirmation, but I've learned to kind of wake up and say, Lord, whatever is for me, I accept and I receive.
Well, I'm sorry, one second. That's definitely you affirming that you are choosing to walk with God's plan for your life, right? Everyone has a responsibility to choose ye this day. You have a responsibility, like, to declare the day. Putting God in the driver's seat is definitely where every day starts, right? But it's the habit to give God the driver's seat and you get out the way. You have to train yourself to get out the way, right? So it's a prayer, but you're training yourself to know who's really guiding that day. And so many of us are trying to get to that space. So I just want to big it up that it's in us. Yeah. Like, to speak, it's the affirmations are in us. We just have to make regular space to say it and call those things out, even when we can't see it happening around us.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's so crazy, because like even in COVID-19, you learn a lot about yourself when you just stop. When you are in a space with just yourself, you know, so much happens around you that affects you. You know what I'm saying? Because guess what? Sometimes things will move and it'll move away from you. You're affected. Some things will move towards you. You're affected. But when you are really in a space where you're left with yourself, that thought of growth comes about. Because sometimes the challenges come where you go through a breakup. You lose a job. You have to figure out how to pay bills, family issues and stuff like that. Get you grief. Death happens. You know, and our hearts at Hampton University go out to our student body and our alum and our community, because as we have experienced in 2020, we must all give virtual hugs and be there for one another. Yeah. So I know that we've talked about soul development, the source of the light that you all have, but can you talk about a time where you experienced a tragedy that you had to bounce back and grow, and what was that process like?
That process looks a lot like deep breaths and checking in with each other each step of the way. We are angel parents to a beautiful baby girl named Kamayu Soul. So you notice this soul theme has been ever present in our life, making room for God's light to shine. But we actually just celebrated her first birthday in heaven, September 30th, 2019. She was born. After a wonderful 9-month pregnancy, what a joy it was. And what's really so unique about this particular journey is that you take this walk, you recognize that you've done the best that you can, you plan the best way that you can, and then you can't control that. Mm-hmm. And then you have to recall where you're at. So when you ask us, like, what's that process like? We're in that process. Yeah. And what we've been doing is to make room for that process. Because what we also found out is that we are not the only ones who are trying to process. The world doesn't give room for grief. It doesn't give space for grief. It makes grief feel like it's a burden, when grief is love, and grief is always with us, and it's always happening, and love is always with us, and it's always happening. And all those cases of COVID and all those numbers, they are family members and they have names, and families are trying to reconfigure their reality this very moment. Mm-hmm. Somebody who this conversation might be for actually don't have the capacity to even tune in. They feel that alone. So we have to do a better job at making spaces that are more grief competent and available, a part of our everyday life, so that when people are grieving, they do feel seen. They don't feel invisible. They don't feel sick. They don't feel like they're the one bringing something down. So I even just give you big ups and big props for having the courage to call this space. But see, our angel parenthood isn't something that we don't want people to know about us. It is who we are. This is Kamayu's mother infinitely. I'm Kamayu's father infinitely. And it's never a bad time to bring her up. You ask a parent, when's a bad time to bring up their child? Never. Right? There's never a bad time to bring up a child when a parent's around. And such is the same with our daughter who is transitioned. But we are parents infinitely.
And I would even add to that it is a process of ever learning. You know, you've named a lot of growth, and I see it as that, but it's growth by way of making room to learn, right? For those new things. It's now I'm put in a position where I am now challenged. Everything that I thought I knew is being challenged, and I'm learning again. And so I find that in this experience, to allow grief to be, and it's like Karega said, I don't feel in my experience living and breathing here on this earth that there is room for grief, or that room is made for it. I think it's often perceived as something uncomfortable. People don't really want to experience when it's really just a natural feeling. It's just as natural as being happy, and they can coexist. And so I've learned in this experience that it's actually not something for me to get over or to get across, but it's actually, I bring it with me. And we keep learning and we keep growing, and it's now a part of me, and it informs my lens, but it doesn't limit me. You know, it doesn't mean that I'm deficit, right?
Different doesn't mean deficit, right? Different doesn't mean deficit. We make room for difference among us. We make room for, and we have to learn that, because if grief is love, earlier this week I told Fee that you can't talk about loss without talking about love. But if you don't,
grief is love after a loss, right? It's this love that you have for that person that you lost, that you want to give to them, and literally and figuratively.
Yes.
But
your arms don't get to do it.
Yeah.
Right? But if you can't talk about loss without talking about love, because grief is love after loss. But if you don't talk about your loss, then you may also miss the opportunity to talk about your love. And that's the healing agency.
That's a double truth.
The love is the healing agency in the loss. The loss is to redirect us back to love. It is to direct us to what is essential. What do we need? That's why we had the term essential workers come when the virus came, and we began to make an assessment of what our true needs are. Grief has the same habit and tendency to redirect us back to love, because that's what we are all called here to do, and we all need more room for it. Then you begin to ask yourself, am I loving at full capacity? What's occupying love's territory? What work do I need to do to get rid of the things that are occupying love's territory so I can love more wholly, love more presently, love more abundantly? How do I love more abundantly? Because love is an abundance. It's massive. It's all around us. Love is even greater than despair. And when you are in despair, nothing can penetrate that. You just seem so in the bottom of it. Love is the only thing greater than despair. So we should live in it more abundantly, so that when moments of despair does come around, we are reminded that we are love's first. We are not just what happened to us. We are not what they're calling us. We are not what's just around us. We are deeply and more marvelous inside. And we have to make room for that practice. And that's what we are learning to do out loud, publicly, because I refused for the state or for anyone else to tell me that I was not Kamayu's father. Just because my child isn't here doesn't mean that she isn't here with me always.
Right. Totally understand. And as always, our hearts, Hampton love.
Hampton hugs. Hey, Hampton hugs. Hey, I'll tell you.
We got to create like a new Hampton hug type of thing.
We do.
Hey, for real, we love.
We got to make
we must.
Virtual love.
Well, be hard.
So I will say this. So, and it's so crazy that you talked about love comes from grief. So we started this conversation talking about you falling in love with Hampton. We switched it around. We talked about grief. one thing that Hamptonians that I know, you know, in my fraternity, I have a lot of older frat brothers. They found their Hampton love, and so I think it's very positive that even if you go into college, you might not have realized that what you experience now is what would have been then. Um, but let's talk about love in the form of an action. When you two wake up out of your love, what makes you smile?
What makes me smile? Um, there is a marvel to waking up. Some of us wake up and there's an immediate list of things that we must do. We're already counting traffic. But grief has given me the gift of slowing down, and I learned the marvel in just waking up. To be included in a new day is such a special marvel. I remember the day my child was born. She wasn't included in the next. And even in grief, sometimes you don't want to get up. But what makes me smile is when I get a chance to remember that I was just woken up supernaturally. No matter what my alarm said, I just got up and took a breath. I say my prayer, and I feel grateful that I have responsibility to and for my wife and my family. So I literally smile at the idea that I just got to be present to cover my family in prayer. And sometimes it's not always like, I'm gonna name it too. It's not like a physical smile on my face. It's a gleaming from the inside that radiates through me always, all the time. I do smile. Me and Felicia laugh a lot. We talk a lot of mess and tell a lot of jokes. And we enjoy that. We enjoy that time to make one another laugh and tell jokes, right? But that's what makes me smile.
Well, my answer is a little bit simpler than that, but I think having to have experienced a grief like this, understanding that at any moment things could change. I I have to honestly say that I smile because I know he's still here. You know, I literally, like yesterday I woke up, you were still asleep. That time I woke up before you, and I looked at you and I smiled. I did. I smiled because he's still here. That he still stands with me, stands by me.
Yeah. Yeah, that these days that's where our smiles come from. Just being able to take this journey together and still have one another.
Yeah.
You know, there's some losses that make you reframe everything around you.
Yeah.
And we certainly experienced that loss. So I'm so grateful to have Felicia each day.
We have a question from the audience. Siani asked, what do you feel is the best way for a Hamptonian to take a bad situation like COVID-19 and use it for your advantage?
Ooh, Siani, shout out to the power question. Firstly, I hope that you are taking this time to take inventory on your values, your virtues, and your heart. I hope that it really gives you time to take that self-assessment. Mm-hmm. And then I also hope it gives you time, Siani, to pivot in how you're seeing the world and see if you have some courage to be ahead of the trend, the market projection, because there's a lot of experiences and technology and positions that are now antiquated because of COVID, right? Certain things don't exist anymore. So you have to also use your imagination to see if there is a new space, a new industry, a new service, experience, or good you can provide to help people in this experience or help yourself. So that might mean that you might have a major in one thing, but you found out you also have a skill set in another endeavor. And it may not be time for your major to harvest right now, but your skill set is certainly monetizable. So you use your skill set in a world that's very skills based right now. And your degree is also it's an investment in you, but you might have to pivot away from your discipline, pivot away from your major right now. And that pivot is always a good practice.
All right. As we come to a close, I do want to give you all a moment, and I'm so honored for this to be in this space with you all virtually with our new Mr. Pirate here. Now I've been taking notes on my phone because we're gonna have to revisit some things. But once again, Hampton University, please keep these two in your prayers. On this Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the OWN Network, they will be cast members on the show Black Love.
Yeah.
But if you two could just please, here's your moment. Let us know what's some upcoming projects that you have for yourself, the book. Please tell us your website that we can follow as well.
Yeah, for sure. We're excited. So get the book, Soul Affirmations.
Soul Affirmations. Yes, you can find Soul Affirmation. Oh, well, what else?
Yeah.
We'll give them all, and then we'll tell you where you can find it.
Also, I want you to stay very close to the Soul Affirmations Deluxe audio experience.
That's right.
We have a beautiful album scored with original, beautiful piano music from Devon Rhodes. And we just want that to be a part of your space, a part of how you treat yourself, a part of how you treat others.
A part of your morning routine.
Part of your morning
routine. Use it.
Yep. Soul Affirmations. Remember, that soul is SOL. All the soul we're talking about is SOL, source of light. Yes. You could go online and just look up Dear Beloved. Take a look at that amazing film. But you know what? Everything that we're telling you can actually find at soulinlove.com.
Yes, the SOL in love. Soul in love. Yes.
SOL.
Soulinlove.com. It's a part of our offerings. We have our music with soul development. The Soul of Black Folk actually is the name of our album. We have, like Karega mentioned, Soul Affirmations. You have access to that project. We have the audio experience as well as the book. You can also find the link to the documentary Dear Beloved, which is a experience that navigates mothers losing their children to gun violence, them writing them letters, and also is I guess moderated through our music.
Yes. Shout out to our Hampton sister, Lauren Adams.
Yes. So
Lauren Adams is a gift.
Shout out our sister because
Lauren Adams is a gift to the world musically.
She is like Hampton. She is the Hampton University.
Everyone knows. Everyone. No matter what year you graduated, if you are into songwriting or anything about music, you're gonna come across Lauren Adams.
And she's a part of our work. She does. I mean, she does everything with this. Soul development, soul affirmation, so all of it.
Came out here, started the school in Oakland.
She was the California pre-alumni president. Okay, back in the day.
But give us. You can follow online. I'm Karega, Karega Bailey, Karega Bailey. You can find me on all social media there.
And I'm Fifi Monique. That's at FEFE Monique. You can find me through Karega.
Yeah.
Felicia, we have one last question that just came in for you, and I don't want to leave the public out, but they would like to know, what is your thought on finding your Hampton love?
Ooh, thought on finding Hampton love.
On campus. Real slim out here now.
Oh man,
they want to know what's your thoughts.
I understand why they're asking me that question. I find it difficult to answer because, like I said, I met Karega prior to Hampton. But what was, I think, foundational for us was the friendship that we brought. I think that we established a friendship first. And that friendship, I want to say, grounded us. I also appreciate the value and the lens that Karega offers, and that he has been using this lens of love as long as I can remember. I think being able to define what that is for yourself and using that as your measure of the man that you want, I think that is the only way that you can do it. I just want
to say this really quickly too. As we talk about finding your Hampton love, whatever love you find at Hampton, however you find that love at Hampton, whoever you love at Hampton, I want you to know that love, when it's as rich as the HBCU experience, two people who've had the privilege of going to Hampton, that love should be used as a tool for liberation and servitude to one's community. The fact that Felicia and I both were privileged to go to Hampton means that we have a greater service to offer to our community. So I believe that our Hampton experience and our love should be a tool for liberation and empowerment for Black people globally. And it's not a tool or something to dangle. And when people say, I have love or you have this, no, you just become a conduit of it.
Yeah.
right? So I believe that Black love should equal Black liberation.
And service.
That's a message right there. That's definitely a message. Well, I would like to once again thank you all so much. This evening conversation has been an absolute delight for myself, and I hope to the community. And I just want to thank you all for being a part of the I Am the Legacy project. This is what it's about. We wanted to close out in full circle, and I think that you all were excellent in doing that. So what's up next, world? I know everybody wants to know. Well, for the winter break, the Office of Student Activities is partnering with Soul Development. We are going to kick off our fall winter break book club. The best way to start off 2021 is with knowing who we are inside and affirming that we can get through anything with love. So Brother Bailey and his family and his company have decided to partner with us. We will be sending out the link so that you can purchase your book in time. It will be something intimate, limited slots available, and I hope everybody jumps on board while we get it. But he is also willing to wake up early because they're also in California on a different time frame.
It's dark there.
Unusual time for you all to come back and have an intimate conversation face to face on a virtual platform so that we can really touch some more souls and spread the Hampton love this way. One other thing, coming up on October 19th through the 25th, Hampton University will be celebrating a virtual homecoming. Details to follow soon on next week. We hope that everybody here has enjoyed this podcast. There is definitely more to come from these two. Please tune in on Saturday. And once again, my brother and sister, we just want to thank you all. Send you Hampton love here from Hampton, Virginia, and stay blessed, okay?
Big love.
Thank
Jordan,
you.
big love. Hampton, VA.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Yep.
Appreciate you guys.
Two up, two down.